take over that functioning. That's another example of plasticity in the brain. That probably gave you enough time to write all this one down already. All right, the part in psychology we learn a lot, and you better learn this in this slide now because I'm going to cover this 2 more times during the semester. It's called the autonomic system. Carries messages to and from the internal organs and the glands, and it controls involuntary activities. Do you remember my statement? We're still animals out in the wild trying to survive. This is all about survival mechanism. It's called the autonomic system, and it has 2 parts to it, the sympathetic and the parasympathetic. The sympathetic part of the branch of the autonomic nervous system is the emergency system that prepares the body for fight or flight. Get that? Automatically, your brain goes, oh my God, it's dangerous, something's going on. And you don't even think about it. Messages go out to prepare your body to fight or to flee. So let's say I took you people back 7,000 years ago. And we're out here in North Texas, and we have a meeting of the clans. All the various clans are coming from all over, and we have this big meeting. And what you all need to realize is when humans get together, what do? They like to have a good time. So when you were having a good time yesterday at a Super Bowl party, or you were out this weekend dancing and everything else, that's what they were doing 7,000 and 8,000 years ago when they got together. Okay? They came together. And the people in the first 2 rows went out there and they got us some fruits and vegetables. Next 2 rows went out and they killed a woolly mammoth. And then the next 2 rows behind them, they're the barbecue people, and they're cooking us up some woolly mammoth burgers and steaks and stuff. And the people in the last row, okay, found these grapes, okay, and they put them in this big vat for a while, and they fermented them a little bit, and now we have a nice Cabernet to drink, okay, because that's our wine. So we're out there, what, eating and probably drinking, because the people have always done that, okay, and playing music. Okay? Humans have always played music. Okay? So when you were out dancing this weekend and stuff, people have been doing that forever when they got together. They were just having a party. So we're having a good time and everything, and out of the corner of your eye, she sees 2 saber-toothed tigers coming into camp. Because remember, at one time we were not on top of the food chain. We were part of the food chain. And they were coming to eat some nice human meat, okay? So she jumps up and she says, wagga, 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 okay? Which in the ancient language basically means look out, okay? And as soon as she screams that out, your brain, the sympathetic part says, oh no, danger, and your body gears up to grab your spear and fight, or for some of you, just take off, okay? The rest of those people way back when who didn't have an active sympathetic branch went like this. Oh, wow. Saber-toothed tiger. Ugh! They've got eaten. Okay? Those people who don't respond to, you ready? Here's what the word we use now, stress, are out. We don't have them in our genetic pool anymore. Most of us react to stress. Fight or flight. Danger, fight or flight. And this is what happens to you automatically. Your pupils are going to dilate. Ah, look out. You don't want to lose too many fluids because we need it for other indices down here, so you're usually not going to be able to cry. It's going to inhibit your ability to salivate. Okay? You're going to activate sweat glands to cool your body down because you're what? Fighting or fleeing. Increase your heart rate, increasing respiratory rates. Going to inhibit digestion. So that woolly mammoth burger you just had that's sitting in your stomach and intestines may lead to what? Indigestion, all kinds of stomach problems because it's just laying there. It becomes a Maalox moment or something, all right? Because it's just laying there. You need what? Adrenaline to get you up to flight or to flee, okay? You need sugar for energy from your liver. It's going to relax your bladder a little bit. So if you haven't gone to the bathroom recently and you're running, you may have a little accident. That's also why little kids, when they first learn to become toilet trained, when they get excited sometimes, they have little accidents. course, they haven't learned to control their bladders, particularly under stress just yet. It inhibits elimination, which means defecation. You're not going to do that. It'll inhibit your genitalias from working. Men will not get erections under the sympathetic reaction unless they have something going on with saber-toothed tigers or something like that. They might get excited. Women will not lubricate because under the sympathetic reaction, it's fight or flight, right? You're trying to save yourself, not have sex, okay? And it'll reduce a man's ability to ejaculate. So later on this semester, when we talk about sexual dysfunctions and issues and problems, a lot of it has to deal with anxiety, too much anxiety. So there you are, gearing up to fight or to flee. Fight or to flee. And then when we kill the saber-toothed tiger or we get away, when it's all over with, the parasympathetic comes in and quiets the body and reduces arousal. So parasympathetic on the other side slows everything down. And this is done automatically. Ah, danger, boom, fight or to flee. It's involuntary. Okay? Now, what happens to us nowadays, it's called stress, right? Did I tell you I changed the date of the test and your test starts tomorrow, even though I'm not going to cover the first 3 chapters? No. Now, some of you who really care about your grades might get a little pang of anxiety. Those of you going, he's an idiot. Okay, you're kind of mellowed out. It didn't react to that. But get on LBJ and have somebody cut in front of you. Ah! That'll do it, right? You don't think about it. Car doesn't cut in front of you and you go, oh, look, car cutting in front of me. I need to slam on the brakes. You don't do that. You just automatically react. And you have all that stress as well. Fight or flight. It's still around, buried deep in our brains. All right, let's talk a little bit more about the brain. The brain weighs only about 3 pounds. All right, so if you're 400 pounds, is it still 3 pounds? No, it's probably 3 pounds and a quarter or something like that. All right, it's still about 3 pounds. The brain to weight ratio is about 1 to 60. 1 to 60. Why did I put that on there? That's a weird ratio. What we find other animals that have about a 1 to 60 ratio seem to be smarter in the animal kingdom. Okay? Humans, we think we're the smartest. But dolphins and porpoises seem to have a 1 to 60 brain ratio. That's there. And they do have a system of communication where they communicate with each other. They do use tools. They can put things in their mouths to nudge things away. Okay? They do seem to use tools as well. And they do seem to communicate in pods and in communities that are there. The other animals is going to be chimps and monkeys and apes, and they have their own communication. You can teach a chimpanzee a sign language, and that the chimp then will teach their offspring sign language, which is a sign of intelligence that's there. They also use tools to build things to help them forage for food, so they seem to be intelligent as well. And then somebody in my other class was telling me also that crows also have a form of intelligence, that they also use tools to get bugs out of grounds and stuff like that. I think that's true. I haven't looked that up. So I do know that dolphins, porpoises, elephants, by the way, seem to be pretty smart as well. All right, how do we know about the brain? How was I able to show you a picture before of saying this is where this is the seat of auditory aspects or visual? It's because we can look in the brain now. We can do what's called CT scans. You know what these are, computed tomography scans. Some of you had these done. Okay, they're enhanced x-rays. We have MRIs. You know what MRIs are. Those of you who are athletes probably have gotten injured before and had an MRI. Their magnetic resonance imaging gives us 3D pictures of the brain. PET scans, positron emission tomography. We look at brain activity. Okay, we look at brain activity. Okay, actually can peek in there and see whose brains are active right now. Okay, those of you who your eyes are closing, you're not very active. Okay, but most of you are probably pretty active. You can do that. The one they use a lot in psychology is called a functional MRI. It records brain activities. okay, and MRI, but also brain activities, where we can actually go in and see that a male's brain is a little different than a female's brain. We can find that when people are solving complex math problems, we can look and see what they're doing as well. So if I can get this to connect, I'll show you just a quick 3-minute YouTube video. No, this is actually New York Times, if I can get this to work, on how they do a functional MRI. Come on. You can do it.
We've been using MRI machines for the last 10 to 20 years to try to look at brain function and starting to look at brain connectivities. What I do is look at how the different parts of the brain work together to produce behavior. And I think that's the most simple way to think about the connectome. It's about how does the brain work together? And is there something about how well those different parts of the brain talk to each other that helps you do certain kinds of behaviors?
The Human Connectome Project, which Dr. Bark is a part of, is one of many that mark a surge forward in neuroscience. In fact, in April of 2013, President Obama announced the BRAIN Initiative, with $100 million budgeted for the first year,
giving scientists the tools they need to get a dynamic picture of the brain in action and better understand how we think and how we learn and how we remember.
What we're doing in this project is pretty different in a couple ways. We have really state-of-the-art techniques and equipment that are going to let us do this in a much finer-grained way than has ever been done before. We're going to be studying approximately 1,200 individuals across a wide range of things like education levels and income levels, people from different racial and ethnic backgrounds, so we can have a much better sense of the kind of true normal range of brain connections.
You can't be claustrophobic doing these studies. Look what you're going into.
So what Jim's going through is similar to what a typical participant would do in one of our studies.
Okay, pretty straightforward. Yep.
They do 4 different MRI sessions that each capture different pieces of information. So we have one MRI session that really focuses on getting very high resolution pictures of brain structure. Then they do a couple MRI sessions where we look at what we call resting state functional connectivities. They're spontaneous fluctuations in brain activity that occur over time. And we're interested in measuring those and using it to understand which areas of the brain are kind of fluctuating together. Then we also have people do some specific cognitive tasks while they're in the scanner to understand what parts of the brain are active when people are processing certain kinds of information or doing certain memory tasks or remembering things. We have people listen to language and process language. We have people do math. We have people look at emotional faces.
Okay, great. So we're going to start with the second one of that same task. So just double check what you got.
We have people watch videos that have social interactions in them and look at the parts of the brain that respond to social cognition.
I'm fine.
And then the last scan session that people do is using a particular technique called diffusion imaging that is really trying to get at mapping that highway system in terms of those white matter connections between different parts of the brain. You know, one of the things I think we're really hoping comes out of this is to understand early indicators of when people might be starting to have difficulties with brain connectivity. I mean, some of it is just basic science, trying to understand how the brain works and how the brain contributes to how we behave, but a lot of it has clinical application.
So I want to show you that because not only are they figuring out how the brain is working, but now what they're doing with this study, they want to see how those neurons are all connected to each other. And that, I don't know how many decades it's going to take them to do that, because you just think about the billions of connections that are there. But can you imagine if they can do something like that, and let's just say someone is chronically depressed, and we can find where in the brain depression may come from, and then maybe try to rewire some of that for some people. I mean, the possibilities are endless to try to figure this out. Those of you interested in psychology, the younger guy in the blue shirt and the tan pants is basically a graduate assistant, and they get to do a lot of these experiments and sit at the computers and run this stuff that's there. Okay? Sorry. There it is. There's a PET scan, okay, showing you someone trying to work through problems. The darker the colors, like the red area over here, is someone who's really thinking hard at trying to solve this problem that's there. They're having a little more problems with this. This person isn't as dark, but they're using big parts of their brain, okay, to come up with a complex problem that they're solving. This one's getting stuck at it, and they're thinking really hard in that one particular area that's there. Okay? I thought this one was interesting. Hook you up to a functional MRI and see if you're lying or not. Because when people are lying, there are different parts of their brain that gets activated when they're lying. It's kind of interesting. Maybe someday we'll... You've heard of lie detector tests, which are really just measure stress reactions, but who knows, someday you can hook up a boyfriend or a girlfriend to this to see if they're lying. You know, there's a lot of ethical considerations to go on with this stuff someday, because I don't know what people are going to do with all this information that they have. Because we can find out a lot about people and their brain, and who's lying, who's not lying. But all right, let's talk a little bit more about the brain. Your brain is actually divided up into two large hemispheres that cover the upper part of the brain. So it's called the cerebrum. The cerebrum is all of this, also called the cerebral cortex. It's all of this, and it's subdivided into two hemispheres. There's the left cerebral hemisphere and the right cerebral hemisphere. So there are two hemispheres in the brain. Cerebral hemispheres control opposite sides of the body. So my right side of my body is controlled by the left cerebral hemisphere, and the right hemisphere controls the left side of my brain. So if I have a stroke and have damage I can't move my left arm, then there's probably something going on in the motor development areas in my right hemisphere. Now, what connects the two hemispheres is something called the corpus callosum. It's a connecting fiber between two hemispheres. So there's a corpus callosum up here that connects the left and right hemisphere. So when I think about something and it originates in the left brain, neurologically it crosses over the corpus callosum and is shared with the other hemisphere, the right hemisphere, and back and forth. So messages go back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. So let me tell you a quick story. Many decades ago, we did not have any medication that helped control what's called grand mal seizures, or epilepsy. There are two types of seizures, grand mal and petit mal. Grand mal are the very severe ones, petit mal are the smaller ones. We had medication that helped people who had petit mal seizures but not grand mal seizures. And what we told people was, if you had too many of these, you could possibly die, okay, or go into a coma from these. Well, people were trying to experiment with different drugs to try to help this and help these people. Someone by the name of Sperry, the man's name was Sperry, decided he was going to take a different track. What he was going to do is first figure out what happens with a seizure. What happens with a seizure is basically there's a neurochemical malfunction in one part of the brain, let's say right here. What then happens, remember, neuron to neuron to neuron, there's an electrical stimulation that then what activates the next neuron, the next neuron, the next neuron, the next neuron. But because this initial charge had so much energy in it, what happens is the charge hits the next one, the energy starts building. back and forth, 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 until the wiring can't handle it anymore. Boom! And there's a minor petit mal or major, grand mal seizure, like an explosion in the brain. All right? So Sperry said, well, I wonder if we can slow that down. Trying to slow it down through drugs, can we do it any other way? Back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. And he said, I wonder if I go in and cut the corpus callosum, sever it, so the message can only go here but can't build up, can only go here, 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 and it won't become great. I wonder if I'll do that. And he did it with mice, then he did it with rats, and then he did it with cats. And it worked. So he published his results, and newspapers got a hold of it, and they went, oh, isn't this interesting? Cut the corpus callosum, you help people. Well, all of the people who are having grand mal seizures, not all, but a lot of them, said, whoa, maybe this might save my life. Contacted Sperry. Now, Sperry was not a medical doctor. He was a biologist, who went, no, I'm not going to go in and cut your corpus callosum. You're a human. I'm just working on cats right now. And they went, yeah, but I may die. So what Sperry did, he got in contact with neurosurgeons, medical doctors, and said, let me show you how to do it. If you guys want to do this, I guess you can. So these people volunteered. Usually when you do research, you start off with mice, and then you move up the evolutionary cycle that's there before you get to humans. But these people went, I may die, do me next. And they started doing these surgeries. Cut them, no longer connected, that's there. Well, they said, that's fine. They sent these people out. And then these people came back with very strange stories. One of the funniest stories, and it wasn't too funny for this guy, but was a lawyer who eventually went back to practicing law. He was actually in the courtroom doing this. I got to get this right. Let me tell you about, now watch this here. Let me tell you about my client. My client is absolutely innocent. This hand reached over, undid his tie. Let me tell you why she's innocent. She's innocent, started undoing his shirt, and went right down the line, and he's still talking away, and people are looking at him like this. The judge went here, did his unbuckled himself, pulled down his zipper, and at that point the judge went, "Whoa, what are you doing here?" And he said, "Well, what are you talking about?" He said, "Look, you're pulling down your pants. You can't do that in my courtroom." And he said, "Well, what are you talking about?" And this hand was just kind of moving around, as if it was independent of his thinking, as if we really might have two brains up here that control different type of functioning. There was another woman who every morning would go in and think about what she's going to wear, and then would reach in with this hand. Left side controls the right side, right? Reach in, grab some clothes, but this hand, which is controlled by this brain, would reach in and pull something else out, and she'd stand there going, "Oh, what am I going to wear? I don't know." Because the two brains wanted to wear something different. This part of the brain was very logical, rational. It's cold out, I'm going to wear something that's warm, maybe darker clothing when it's cold. This hand was pulling out bright, colorful dresses and stuff, sundresses and things like that, because it was kind of cool to wear that. I liked wearing that. And she was like, oh, two brains going on. Split brain, it's called. So they did more research on these people, and what they begin to find that the left brain seems to control language, speech, writing, calculations, and so on down the line, and the right brain seems to be more nonverbal. To simplify this, we say the left brain seems to be more analytical, logical, scientific, and the right brain seems to be more nonverbal, perceptual, more artistic. That's there. And that way. Two different brains. Now, by the way, you people haven't had your corpus callosum cut, right? So the two still communicate. This doesn't happen. But what we do find, though, is that sometimes we see a difference between left-handed people, wherever you are, and right-handed people. Left-handed people have a tendency to be more creative, When you look at musicians and artists, writers, and you look at the percentage of people who are in those fields, left-handed people, which makes up about 5 to 10%, depending upon the culture. Of across the world have a much higher percentage than they should in those fields that are there. So you start thinking, I wonder if the creative process is here and they have a tendency to access that a little bit more than these people here. Kind of different, isn't it? Kind of interesting to see that goes on. So do we really have two different brains? Yes, we do. There really is two different functioning going on, but we have a corpus callosum that's in contact with each other, so messages go back and forth. That's there, back and forth. All right? Is that interesting? Just real quickly. I mean, that's two different brains that are up there. By the way, at the end of this chapter, they have a little test for you to take to see if you're left brain dominant or right brain dominant. Left brain dominant people have a tendency to be more scientific, logical, rational. Right brain dominant seem to be more musical, artistic, flowing a little bit better in their lives. 2 more minutes. Lobes of the brain. Okay? In the textbook, they have many, many different lobes they're going to talk about. I'm only going to talk about 4 different lobes of the brain. Real simply. The frontal lobe, sense of smell, motor control, high mental abilities such as reasoning and planning. Right here. This is it. This is who we are. Thinking, logic, and rationally. This is what separates us from other mammals and other animals. Our ability to be intelligent, to reason, is all right here. All right here. This is the area that develops last in brain development. If you're a fan of science fiction and people describe creatures from other planets, they usually have really big foreheads. Why? Because the assumption is they're smarter than we are. They got here, and we didn't get to their place. So their brains must be bigger in this area. Logic, rationality, mental abilities, reasoning, planning. Parietal lobe, which is back here, sensations such as touch, temperature, and pressure. Occipital lobe, which is back here, which would be vision. Yesterday in that football game, if anybody got smacked in the back of the head, sometimes that interferes in brain processing. You're still trying to see, but what you see is stars. You ever hear somebody say, oh, my God, I got hit in the back of the head, I see stars. It's an interruption in the brain processing for vision. The temporal lobes are here, the seat of hearing, as well as emotions. We're going to talk about that, as well as language. Get smacked in the side of the head there, it interferes with your ability to hear, so it distorts your hearing. And sometimes people say they got their bell rung because they hear a ringing sound that's there. And we went through the forebrain and the occipital lobes and the temporal lobes. So I want to continue on talking about the structure of the brain and how the structure of the brain is going to affect and effect what you think, feel, and behave. So in the hindbrain, we're talking about the area way back here in the brain. So the first thing we want to talk about is the cerebellum. The cerebellum is at the very base of the brain, in the hindbrain, and it controls balance and your coordination that's there. Balance and coordination. Get hit in the back of the head, way in the back there, may interrupt that. That's there. We also are beginning to find that when we peek into people's brains, we begin to find that people who have incredible balance and coordination, like athletes or gymnasts, they seem to have a greater connectivity in their brain. Basically, that means that the brain is wired more in a more consistent pattern that's there in these people's brains. Those of you who are uncoordinated, you're always tripping all over the place, I kind of wonder if we looked in your brain, maybe you don't have the connectivity that these people do. That's there. So what we look at when we peek in people's brains, we begin to find that if people who have these talents that's there that you and I may not have, could be based on what goes on in the brain. They may have been genetically predisposed to that, and then the environment, sculptured the brain, and those connections got greater. That's there. Or they didn't have it, but they did an activity over and over and over and over and over and over again, which helped it as well. Did you have a question? And then you had a question.
Okay, I'm an athlete. I played soccer, and I had a neck injury.
Yeah?
And after that injury, I had trouble balancing.
Okay.
In sports and everything, and running, I did not have any good balance anymore. So would that have messed up?
That could be it. Let me just repeat what you said, because I don't think everybody heard you. She said she is an athlete. I won't say was. She is an athlete. And she played a lot of soccer, but then she had a neck injury. And then after that, she had difficulty running. Her balance was off. Yeah, there's your neck. That could have been very much, especially if you snapped it back. Now, the other problem could have been it might have also be an inner ear aspect, because that has a lot to do with balances as well. Yeah, you do find that professional athletes will go that far when they have some injuries to the head, particularly football players, soccer players. People don't realize, we talk a lot about football players and having concussions and stuff. People don't realize the concussions that soccer players have all the time. Get damage to different parts of the brain, it's going to affect your motor abilities and everything else. Very much so. Yeah.
So, I was a gymnast for 3 years and I was pretty good at it.
Uh-huh.
But I'm one of the most clumsiest persons I know. Like, I don't know if that.
Well, there could be a difference in clumsiness and coordination that's there. If you're a good gymnast, that's great. Now, how old were you when you were a good gymnast?
15.
15 at the oldest? So 12 through 15?
Well, at the oldest I was
15, 16? 16, that's there. Now, as you get older, remember, if you're not going to continue this anymore, you may have gotten clumsier. Or maybe you were clumsy when you were younger, and then what happened, you started developing and the coordination got better, that's there. Remember, we're also talking about, I don't think you were Olympic gymnasts. Okay. All right, so, those are the people that's who they're doing the research with, okay? The people who have incredible coordination like that. You know who Emmett Smith was? Okay, Dallas Cowboys running back. They've done studies with him as well, and partly what they find is that the guy had incredible balance. I mean, it'd be real hard to knock him over all the time, and incredible balance that he had. I'm talking about very, very gifted people that's there. All right, the reticular formation, another part of the hindbrain, okay, and here's a picture of the reticular formation. Okay, the reticular formation, okay, is right down here in the brainstem as it comes down. Here's the cerebellum, by the way. And this is what the reticular formation is. You ready? Pay attention. That's it. Okay, the reticular formation helps you pay attention. All right? Stay with me. You with me? That's what your brain does. It says, pay attention. The reticular formation. The reticular formation sends a message, like in this, through the whole brain. Like just what you just did right now. Okay? What happened is that he came in. Is it he? Okay. He came in, okay, and all of you just went, and you looked right over there. What that is the reticular formation says, pay attention to anything that's new, different, interesting, or the big one is dangerous. Okay? Wake up. What is this? Remember, I've said now for the third time, we really are animals out in a hostile world and we're trying to stay alive. This is what this does this too. It's pay attention to anything that's new, different, interesting, loud, bright, anything that's going to shake you up. And then once you identify it, who came in through the door? All right, it's just him. That's okay. Then your brain settles back down again. All right? It's the wake-up call that goes on in your brain. The reticular formation. Boom, wakes you up. Anything new, different, and interesting. Sitting in this class for an hour and 20 minutes isn't new and different, isn't it? And most of you will stay with me for a good 25 or 30 minutes, and then we all start drifting off. Some of you, by the way, drift off in 2 minutes, okay? But some of you stay. It's just hard to pay attention. When we cover the chapter on sensation and perception, I'm going to teach you, if you let me, how to focus, how to be mindful, or how to focus, how to stay with me. Okay, because what winds up happening is that we all start drifting off because our brains are not wired to pay attention. The reticular formation says pay attention to anything is new, different, interesting, dangerous. Okay? And if it's not, then your brain goes, ugh. Okay? It just doesn't get startled that way. Right? And all of us in here grew up with television and audio, video stimulation. If you took to your great-grandparents who grew up with radio, those people have a different brain. Sorry. Okay? They really do. They can sit and just listen really, really well. If you ever watch some of their television programs that are from the 1940s and 50s and 30s, as they watch television, okay, a lot of those shows have a lot of dialogue in it. People just start talking to each other, and they talk and talk and talk. When you and I watch them, sometimes you're like, oh, this is interesting, and we go to sleep. Because our movies are what? Boom, bang, boom, blow something up, have some more music. Okay, come on, talk some more. Whoop, not much talk. Can't have too much talk. Got to throw some music in there. Because what happens, producers, directors, no, you're not going to sit and just listen to somebody talk to each other for 5 minutes. You'll listen to that for a while, and then you're going to throw in a car blowing up, okay, or some type of music that comes in, or change of scenery, because your brain becomes adapted to this. The reticular formation wakes you up. Another example of this is that mothers, if they connect with their infants, become in tune with their infants, and they tell themselves, ready? Tell themselves through the frontal lobes, right, reasoning, I need to pay attention to my baby, particularly when they're sleeping. Okay, because I don't want anything to happen to my baby when they're sleeping. You can have 7 moms in one room, 7 infants in another room, have an intercom system, 1 baby cries, 1 mom wakes up, just the one that's her baby. That's it. Why? Because she is so in tune, okay, with her baby. Good mothers do that, all right? Not all mothers, okay? You really get in tune with those babies. Now, by the way, when you do these studies, they're not done very long. 1 baby wakes up, 1 mother wakes up. Within about a minute, all the other babies are crying too. So, but you can do that study. Now, here's another interesting little thought. Let's say there's mom and dad are together. They're sleeping over here. The baby's in the other room. Baby cries. Ah! Right? Sound waves come across. Hits mom, hits dad as well, right? Mom goes, oh, baby's crying. What's going on? Need to go in there. Dad sleeps through the whole thing. What's going on? It's a cry of distress, right? Comes in. Mom responds. Dad sleeps. Right? What's with his reticular system? Well, this is what happens. Mom, through the frontal lobes, has said, pay attention. I don't want my baby maybe having sudden infant death syndrome or something like that. No, we don't want anything of that happening. So she's sleeping, but, you know, it's like one part of her brain, the reticular formation, is saying, pay attention, pay attention, pay attention. Wakes up right away. Dad, frontal lobes, probably thought to himself, baby cries, she'll get up. I'll sleep through this one. She'll probably get up. Message comes across. Frontal lobes tells reticular system, don't pay attention to that. What? In one ear, out the other ear, right? So mom goes, boom, like that to his ribs, wakes him up, and he goes gets the baby. Okay? That's about the only way. That also means you can train frontal lobes to tell the brain to stay awake. Still with me? You can train yourself to do this. Well, when we get to the chapter on sensation and perception, I'll tell you. All right? So we'll get there. But just for practice, what you might want to do today is that if you find, because this is what we're going to do, okay, if you find yourself drifting off, you want to consciously say, pull it back, pull it back. What is he talking about again? Let me see something, hear, write, do something to pull myself back. All right, because that's going to be the basis of this. All right, let's talk about other areas of the brain. I want to talk more about the forebrain. Okay, right up here. Okay, they want to talk about the thalamus. Well, let me show you a picture, and then I'll come back for the spelling. All right, well, there's the spelling right there. Thalamus, right up here. There's the spelling of it. Deep in the brain, isn't it? Really deep in the brain. I'm just going to introduce the thalamus now. When we get to the chapter on memory, we're going to talk a lot more about it. But the thalamus seems to be one of the last spots for all sensory information to come up into. So what you see, hear, taste, smell, touch, it comes into the thalamus and then gets separated back out. Since sensory information is coming up through there, when we do the chapter on memory, okay, we're going to talk a lot more about the thalamus and how it assists us in terms of memory. All right, so if I go back, the next thing we want to talk about is the hypothalamus, which is what? Under. Hypo means under, underneath the thalamus. So hypothalamus, there's the spelling again there. It's right, look how small. This is so small, right there. This little part of your brain controls thirst, hunger, eating, okay? This is the signal that your brain gets through a feedback loop, okay, that when you're thirsty to feel, I'm thirsty, I need to drink something, okay? When you're hungry, okay, messages come from the hypothalamus to tell you, I'm hungry, I need to eat something. Coordinates with what? Your stomach, blood sugar levels, I'm hungry. When you are full, the hypothalamus sends messages out through neurotransmitters, but also through hormones to say, I'm satiated. I don't need any more food. I'm full. No more for me. Okay? The latest diet pills they have out now will be working on the hypothalamus to try to induce that. That's there. The hypothalamus also controls pleasure. Okay? So when you're doing something that you really like, okay, the hypothalamus is going to go, ooh, we like this, and it's going to release hormones, okay, or tell glands to release hormones, and also neurotransmitters to make you feel good, particularly dopamine, okay, ooh, this is good. Those of you who like to shop, and when you shop, you're going to like, I really feel good when I shop, especially when I buy something. Well, when you buy something and you get that good feeling, the hypothalamus is going, and you go, wow, this is good. I'm feeling good. Seat of your pleasure zones. Those of you who have engaged in sexual behaviors, if anyone here has, and if you've ever had an orgasm, okay, when you have that orgasm, part of the pleasure you feel comes from the hypothalamus. What? Okay, really good. It's part of the stimulation from the hypothalamus. So if we ever learn to control the hypothalamus, I don't know what we'll do. We can rule the world, I guess, in that way. If you're doing a drug that gives you a big euphoric feeling, like heroin or cocaine especially, part of cocaine, the receptor sites in the hypothalamus get stimulated, and boom, you get this electrical chemical rush of feeling good. This little part right there does all of this in your brain, way in the back.
Oh, back to what you were saying, that it controls pleasure, and that most diet pills, have to do with that part.
No, the newest diet pills will. Okay, there are a lot of diet pills do other things. Yeah.
It goes also back to the placebo method, right?
The what method?
The placebo.
Yes, the placebo. It can be a placebo method, right? Anything can be a placebo method, right? Anything where your brain, where you're starting to think, oh, this is really working. Oh, absolutely, yeah. But they have, when we get to the chapter when I talk about weight and things like that, I'll show you the parts of the hypothalamus that these pills will stimulate to make you feel full, okay, or to make you feel hungry, okay. Either way, they can do that neurochemically, okay. But yeah, a lot of this has placebo effects as well. All right, so then we'll do the last part of here is called the limbic system, L-I-M-B-I-C, right, as opposed to Olympics, right, which start this week in Russia, but limbic system. What's the limbic system? L-I-M-B-I-C, all of this. This whole, like little C that's here, all of this is called the limbic system. The limbic system is the seat of emotions. It's the seat of emotions. Those of you who are very emotional, we go to a movie with you, and you're sitting there, you're crying, on? And you're going, oh, because I'm so happy. You're crying because you're happy? What's the deal here? I don't know. This is so happy. This is a happy movie. Okay? You're an emotional person. That's who you are. My guess is you probably have the connectivity in this part of your brain is probably pretty solid that's there. That's just who you are. You get what I'm saying here? Sometimes it's just who you are. Change it. You shouldn't be so emotional. The hell with you. I am emotional, right? It's just who I am. Give me a break. That's here. Researchers have, and I'm not going to show you exactly where this is, but researchers say different parts of the limbic system, if you stimulate, will make you feel angry, sad, happy, calm, peaceful, whatever emotion you feel. That's there. This one right here, the amygdala, right on the bottom here, is very, very important. When stimulated, sometimes it can make people really, really angry. Okay? Really, really angry. The amygdala is the seat of a lot of emotional aspects. Things get stimulated through those areas. There was a very famous study that was done with a bull, B-U-L-L, a bull. This fellow, I think his name was Delgado, psychologist, implanted an electrode in the bull's amygdala. Okay? And then he got into a bull ring with the bull, okay, and stood there, and he had two transmitters. And he stood there, and he zapped the bull once, and got electrical stimulation. The bull just went, and you can actually see this. You probably get online through YouTube and see this. And the bull goes like this, and he looks, and he sees him there, and he's kind of waving at the bull, and the bull just starts charging him. And he stands there like this and waits for the bull to get maybe about 20, 25 feet from him, and then pushes another transmitter and stimulates a different part of the bull's brain, which calms him down. And you just see this bull just go, just stopping about 10 feet away. I mean, he's really 10 feet, that's pretty close between you and I, right? That's close. And he just kind of snorts a little bit and walks away. Gets far enough away, zaps him again, and starts charging him again. Good thing he got his buttons right? Or he'd been in trouble. That's there. Maybe, and by the way, there is some beginning research on this, people who have, I don't know what to say, inconsistent amygdala or a well-connected amygdala have a tendency towards violence. Maybe, that's there, because we know this does have play into certain emotions that's there. So maybe the way we feel has a lot to do with what brain structure. Now, you do realize, as I talk about this, I'm not saying the only reason why people are angry is because of that, right? Bio-psycho-social. I'm just doing the bio part right now. Everybody understand that? I just don't want anybody to walk out of here and say, oh, the reason why I'm really an emotional person is because of my amygdala. No, it's many, many, many different things. We're just doing one here. All right, now let's talk about the hormone system. So we talked about neurotransmitters, neurochemicals in the brain, and how it makes you think, changes the way you think, feel, and behave. We talked about the structures in the brain. So now let's talk about the endocrine system, which is hormones, right? These are glands that release hormones, and they also affect how you think, feel, and behave. We've already mentioned the sex hormones, progesterone, testosterone, estrogen, and the effect on human behavior that's there. We mentioned that, I think, the first class that's there. So let's go through some other glands. The first gland we want to talk about is the pituitary gland. Let me show you a picture of the pituitary. In fact, why don't I leave this up, and I'll just point them out to you, because this has the descriptions written down there. The pituitary gland, which is deep in your brain, influences growth and lactation, also regulates the activity of the other glands. Okay? So the pituitary gland may tell the ovaries or the testes to release hormones, to release eggs and sperm. That's there. Pituitary gland is primarily for growth. Most of the time it becomes activated when you're about 10 to 12 years old. And that starts giving you your growth spurts during puberty. Some of you who stayed kind of small, 10, 11, 12, 13 years old, 14, and you're still smaller than everybody else, probably late onset puberty, and then all of a sudden you just jumped up 4 or 5 inches or something like that. What happened was that your pituitary gland woke up. okay? And it started releasing hormones to help in that growth factor. That's there. All right, the next one that was on your list was the thyroid gland, right? The thyroid gland. So let's just go down the list. The thyroid gland is right there, and it regulates the rate, the metabolic rate in your body. What is the metabolic rate? Is how energetic are you? How much energy do you need to burn off calories, let's say, all right? How energetic you are, right? Right? A lot of you aren't super energetic, okay, right now, but metabolic rates. I told you I was a practicing therapist. I retired in November from this. But if someone came to me and said, oh, Dr. Link, you know, I just can't do anything. I feel so lethargic. I can't move. I feel so depressed. I don't know what I'm doing. Before I start asking questions like, tell me more about that. What's going on in your life? One of the first things I would do is say, have you gotten a good physical? And they say, what? Physically I'm fine. It's psychologically I got problems. I said, well, maybe it's not psychologically. Maybe it's physical. Because what we know about people who have an underactive thyroid called hypo, H-Y-P-O, thyroidism, is that they have the same symptoms as people who are depressed. They're lethargic, they don't want to get out of bed, they don't move very much, and here's the big one, they look at food and gain weight. Okay? They just smell it and look at it and they start gaining weight. Why? Because their metabolic rates are very, very low. Then their body is not burning off calories. Hypothyroidism. So why sit and talk to me about your background, your life, and everything else when maybe we can get you on a thyroid pill, thyroxine, and that might help you with your depression. Make sense? The opposite of that is hyperthyroidism, right? Overactive thyroid. And these people are like this all the time, right? They're really, really anxious. It's like, looks like they have an anxiety disorder. They're not thinking very clearly. They just can't calm down. They can't sleep. And these are the people you go to lunch with, by the way. They eat their lunch, and you haven't finished yours, and they go, do you mind if I finish yours? Because I'm still hungry. These people eat all day long, and they don't gain weight. Why? Because they may have what's called hyperthyroidism, right? They're just burning it off. Now, those of you who are 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, as your brain develops, your brain needs a lot of energy, so your thyroid is really cranking it out. Okay? You're burning off calories. But once you start hitting your 20s, your thyroid starts slowing down. And if you don't change your eating habits, you're still eating, like you ate when you were 16, or you're going to start gaining weight pretty quickly. That's there. Another aspect, and I don't think there's anybody in here who's this age, but when you are premenopausal or menopausal for women, what happens, there's a strong connection, since it's all hormonal that's there, with hypothyroidism, okay? Underactive thyroid. So you're going through menopause, change in estrogen, progesterone levels that are there. Thyroid levels are usually off, so there's a correlation between that and depression, okay? Besides just going through menopause and thinking about it, okay? But also with gaining weight at those years as well, and gaining weight. So we look at the thyroid, how it affects how we think, feel, and behave. The next one on the list is the adrenal glands, right over here, over your kidneys. Secretes hormones that arouse the body and gives you energy. Remember fight or flight? The sympathetic part of the nervous system, right? Kicks in the gear, fight or flight. Well, adrenaline gets released when you're under stress and flows through your body to make you more aware, awake, energetic, and increases your strength as well. But too much of it makes you feel like you have an anxiety disorder. You just can't come down, can't sleep, can't come down, can't sleep. And if you have a malfunctioning adrenal gland and it keeps producing, you're going to feel your heart's going to be beating all the time like you're constantly under stress. But after a while, what happens, the adrenal gland runs out of adrenaline, so you're buzzing along, and then you just, crash. So you have all this anxiety, and all of a sudden you just feel so bad, like you have depression. That's there. So we see that as a symptom for people who have a malfunctioning adrenal gland. All right, and the last one we want to talk about is on the very, very top. The pineal gland helps regulate body rhythms and sleep cycles. Rhythms, right? Aren't our bodies in rhythms? We're all in rhythms. Most of you should be getting into a rhythm on a sleep cycle, going to bed at a certain time, waking up at a certain time. By the way, your body likes this. Those of you who don't do this, okay, there's a high correlation with lack of sleep and weight gain as well as depression. Okay, so your body likes to be in cycles. There's a hormone that's released from the pineal gland, which is called melatonin. Okay, melatonin, when hooked up with the sleep cycle, helps you get to sleep. Melatonin is released when it starts getting dark. Okay, so it starts getting dark, 6, 7, 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock. Your brain is starting to produce melatonin, and melatonin starts making you sleepy. Okay? It starts making you sleepy. You start nodding off. Then as light starts coming into your life again, the pineal gland begins to decrease the release of melatonin, and you begin to wake up. People who live in this hemisphere, okay, in the northern hemisphere in the winter time, who live in Alaska, Scandinavian countries, Russia, they have tough times in the winter. They have very, very high rates of depression. One of the reasons is this reason: dark all the time. Melatonin always being released. This actually has a name. It's called seasonal affective disorder, SAD. SAD, seasonal affective disorder. And there's one treatment for it. You know what the treatment is? Get up in the morning and sit under these special lights. And you sit under the lights, and what happens is melatonin gets decreased and you start feeling better. It's a weird treatment, isn't it?
Isn't there an opposite of a seasonal affective disorder, but manifested in the summer?
Yeah, that doesn't happen a lot. It's usually the other way for this reason. I've heard of that, but I think it's more what I've heard about it's more this way than anything else that's there. Well, what may happen this week to us? I mean, it's supposed to be dark and dreary. It may snow tomorrow, right? Right through Friday, that's there. What you're going to find when we get a week of this stuff, by the end of the week, some of us are going, gosh, I'm going to see the sun again. What's going on? I'm kind of tired. It makes me kind of sleepy. This is why it's cold. I don't think I want to get out of bed. It's so dark out all the time. That's part of this. That's there. Overabundance of melatonin levels that are there may make you sleepy a lot. So don't live in Alaska during the wintertime, or Seattle, I guess. Okay, we live in a good place. We have a lot of sunny days, don't we? That seems to help us. In
the South Pole, there's I think about 55 days where the sun doesn't set.
Right.
So the opposite happen?
Well, yeah, the North Pole as well, right? I mean, it depends on which time of the year. The sun doesn't set at all. So what happens to those people? They have a hard time getting to sleep. And when you have a hard time getting to, maybe this is the connection, when you have a hard time getting to sleep, okay, there's increased levels of depression. Okay? By the way, when you have a hard time getting to sleep, then your cycles are off, right, completely. That then also is correlated with higher rates of drug abuse. If you look at some of the Scandinavian countries, Russia, Alaska, they have high rates of alcoholism, very high rates of alcoholism. Again, it's multivariables, right? It's not just this. There's probably a lot of other reasons for it. Still with me? All right, still focusing. So if you drifted away, you're pulling yourself back. For 1 point, overactivity of what gland leads to tenseness and excitability? Thymus, thyroid, hormone, serotonin. So there are 3 key words, isn't this, to this one? 3 key words? Good. You can talk to each other. It's okay. Some of you going, you can do that. Because if the other person knows it, then maybe they can explain it to you better than I did, and then you'll learn it. You have a question?
Yeah. So people with an overactive hypothalamus,
People who have an underactive hypothalamus will eat a lot, okay, but put on weight very, very quickly. People who have an overactive hypothalamus, when we're doing hypothalamus, not thyroid. Okay? People who have an no, I can't say that, because we have different sections of the hypothalamus. Some sections will cause you to overeat, some sections will cause you to be full. So I can't say that. Okay. Right? Depends upon which section it is. Okay. All right, everybody get this one? All right, ready? Let's put in, come on, get ready. Put in your answers. Let's go. 1, 2, 3. Everybody got it? Okay. All right, so 90% of you are correct. Right. So there are 3 key terms to this, right? The first one is gland. Is gland. So you look through the answers. Is thymus a gland? Thyroid? Yes. Hormone, is that a gland? No, that's glands release hormones, serotonin. So even if you didn't know the answer to this one, that's the only one that's a gland. Right? Then you go to which gland, tenseness and excitability, and it's the thyroid, and that'd be an overactive thyroid. Want another one? I finished this chapter, so I'm just giving you some review, okay, and some key questions. In higher animals, visible portions of the brain are covered with a wrinkled layer of gray matter called the what? The cerebral cortex, the cerebellum, the corpus callosum, or the forebrain. So I'm going to teach you once again how to do multiple choice questions. What you want to, even if you don't know what the answer is, you go, I don't know what the answer is, do a process of elimination. What did I say about the forebrain, the corpus callosum, the cerebellum, the cerebral cortex? Which one would be visible portions of that brain are covered with the wrinkled layer of gray matter? This whole thing here. I did mention this, but I mentioned it very, very quickly. If you came in late and you are doing the International Conversations Partners Program, I have your schedule here. You signed up for it. She's not going to get in touch with you. She got in touch with me, and this is your schedule. Okay, so come down after class and pick it up. All right, we got it? Well, let's get it. How much more are you going to think about it? Just put your answers in. Take a guess if you don't know it. Ready? Let's get to 52, right? 50. Oh, got 53 now. 54, going once, going twice. 53. All right. Ooh, we're all over the place, huh? I guess this was a tough question. And the answer is the cerebral cortex. Now, I did say, when I said, let's talk about the cerebral hemispheres. And in the cerebral hemispheres, sometimes it's called the cerebrum. Sometimes you see it called the cerebral cortex. But what it is, it's all this area that's up there. Right? The cerebellum is going to be the lower part of your brain, just the little part back here for balance. The corpus callosum is the connecting tissue between the left and right hemisphere, and the forebrain would just be the information right here. Right? So make sure you write down this answer, because I told you once before, every once in a while I'll put some questions right on the test, right out of these PowerPoints. Where is the cerebellum? What's the definition? Cerebellum is in the back of your head, way back here in the hindbrain, and it controls body balance and coordination. That was the question we had about gymnasts, about how gymnasts probably have a better connectivity in their brains. All right, want one more? Now this one, next one that we're going to do is a difficult question. This is called an application question. You've got to be able to apply about 3 bits of information that we learned to solve this question. If a split brain subject was given a key and they didn't see it, and you put it in their hand, in their left hand, to feel with their left hand. All right? So a split brain person, okay, you have them touch a key in their left. They don't look at it. They just say, look forward, touch this key, and they touch it with their left hand. He could easily name what he had touched. 2, would be unable to describe the object. 3, would be able to point to the key with his right hand. Or 4, would have to wait for the information transfer to take place before describing it. This is a hard one, so you need to... What's that? Well, that's what you're supposed to know. I'll tell you after this. And we covered it. Remember, this is for a point. You're supposed to be paying attention to all this. Come on, you're on the right track. He'll tell you. Yeah. This one you might want to talk to somebody about. You're on the right track. Some of you, as I watch you do this stuff. This is a brain teaser or a frontal lobe teaser, all right? You're going to have to solve this with reasoning. Good. Sounds like you're teaching each other, right? Those of you who are watching this as a video didn't come to class. Therefore, you have nobody to talk to right now as you watch this. So you may get this question wrong. Come to class. That'll shock them, right? We got it? All right, let's get your answers in. I don't want to fall too far behind here. Just guess if you don't have it. Got it? All right. All right. Guess we didn't know this one that well, huh? There's the answer. would be unable to describe the object. All right, now those of you who got it right should be very proud of yourself. This is a difficult question. All right, first one is split brain. Define that. Those are the people during the 1960s who had epilepsy, and they went in and they cut the corpus callosum, right? So they severed the hemispheres, so the left and right hemisphere cannot communicate with each other, right? So you tell the person now to touch the key. The touching of the key goes, what? From the left hand to the right brain. So the only part of the brain that knows there's a key that there is the right brain. Which brain controls language? The left brain. So one could easily name what he has touched. No, the information's only up here. Corpus callosum has been cut, doesn't share the information. That's wrong. 3 would be able to point to the key with his right hand. Okay? Not really. Okay? Not really. Okay? The information comes up, okay, comes here, comes to this part of the brain, but this part of the brain controls what hand? The left hand, not the right hand. So the left brain doesn't know what's going on, so they can't do it. Would have to wait for the information transfer to take place? No, it never will, because the corpus callosum's been cut. So there's only one answer, would be unable to describe the object, and they would do this. What do you touch?